Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I was in Denver for a work conference, and instead of blowing half my paycheck on some corporate hotel, I booked a cozy little Airbnb, a studio in a historic building downtown. The pictures looked warm and inviting. Exposed brick walls, a small but elegant bed, soft yellow lighting. A massive antique mirror leaned against the wall near the bedroom, its framed dark wood, the kind you don't see much anymore. It had character. I liked that. I checked in late, just after 9, and the moment I stepped inside, I felt something. Nothing dramatic. No sudden rush of cold air or whispers in the dark. Just heavy, like the air was thick, charged with something unseen. I chalked it up to exhaustion. The first thing I noticed was how silent the place was. Even with the city bustling outside, the walls seemed to swallow sound. I set my suitcase on the bed, let out a long sigh, and decided to take a quick shower. When I stepped out, towel wrapped around my waist, I froze. My suitcase was gone, or at least, it was gone in the mirror's reflection. I turned to the bed. It was still there, right where I had left it, half unzipped. But in the mirror, the bed was perfectly made. No suitcase, no wrinkles, like I had never touched it. My scalp prickled. I stepped closer, heart thudding against my ribs. Raised a hand. My reflection copied me perfectly. I waved. It waved back. Everything looked normal, except for the bed. I stared for a long time, trying to make sense of it. Maybe the lighting was off. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. Maybe. I turned my head, just for a second, to glance at the actual bed. When I turned back, my reflection was still looking away. I felt it like a static charge in my spine. That wrongness, that undeniable something is watching me feeling. Slowly, my reflection turned to face me again, but something about its eyes felt delayed, just by a fraction of a second. Like it took a moment too long to register what I was doing. A knot of cold fear twisted in my stomach. I backed away, flicked off the light, and crawled into bed, determined to ignore it. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Every few minutes, I felt the pull to look at the mirror, and every time I did, it was just sitting there, huge and unmoving, watching. At some point, I must have dozed off, because when I woke, the room was drenched in darkness. My phone said 3:07 a.m. I didn't know what had woken me up at first, and then I heard it, breathing, soft, steady, not mine. I went ice cold. It was coming from across the room. For near the mirror, I stayed perfectly still, my body paralyzed with terror. My ears strained against the silence, waiting for another breath. I felt like a rabbit in the grass, heart hammering, knowing something was watching but not knowing where it was. Slowly, painfully, I turned my head toward the mirror. In the darkness, I could barely see my own reflection, just the vague shape of my body under the blankets. But then, a shadow moved behind me, a shape, human, standing right at the edge of the bed. I stopped breathing. It leaned down, just enough for me to see it clearly in the dim light. My blood turned to ice, because the face staring back at me wasn't mine. It looked like me, but the eyes were wrong. Dark, empty, watching me with a slow, almost curious tilt of the head. I wanted to move, to run, to scream, but I was frozen, trapped in some nightmare that wasn't a nightmare. My throat closed up, lungs burning, body rigid with terror. The reflection opened its mouth. A whisper, too faint to hear, but the lips moved. And I swear to God, it looked like it was smiling. I snapped. I lunged out of bed, slammed the light switch on, and whirled toward the mirror. Nothing, just me, pale, sweating, eyes wild with fear. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the bed, staring at the mirror, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. At sunrise, I threw my clothes into my suitcase, grabbed my keys, and got the hell out. As I was leaving, I texted the host, "Hey, just a heads up. There's something seriously wrong with that mirror in your Airbnb." I expected her to ask what I meant. Instead, she replied almost immediately, "You're the third guest to mention that. We're removing the mirrors soon." I never asked why, and I don't think I want to know. Story 2. I was road tripping across the country, somewhere deep in West Virginia, when I found myself needing a place to stay for the night. It was late. My eyes were burning from hours on the road, and I didn't have the energy to keep driving. Hotels were out of the question. I wasn't in a place big enough to have them. Just a few scattered houses, a gas station that looked abandoned even though it was open, and a long stretch of road that led into thick, endless trees. I pulled up Airbnb on my phone, scrolling through listings until I found one that caught my eye. Charming Victorian home, cozy and historic. The picture showed an old but well-kept house. Wood-paneled walls, vintage furniture, soft lighting. It looked warm, safe. I booked it instantly. The host, an elderly woman named Martha, messaged me back within minutes, saying she'd leave the key under the flower pot by the front door. By the time I arrived, the house was bathed in the soft glow of the porch light. It stood at the edge of a gravel road, surrounded by towering trees that whispered against the wind. Martha greeted me at the door. She was short, hunched with age, and had the kind of eyes that held stories. She smiled kindly, though there was something distant about her. Come in, come in. You must be exhausted," she said, ushering me inside. The place smelled like old wood and lavender. A grandfather clock ticked in the corner, the kind that chimes every hour. The wooden floors creaked beneath my feet, and every hallway seemed to stretch on longer than it should have. Martha handed me an old-fashioned brass key. "Your room is up the stairs, first door on the right. Bathroom's at the end of the hall." I thanked her, about to head upstairs, when she added, casually, too casually, "Just don't go into the room at the end of the hall. It's locked for a reason." A shiver ran through me. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe it was the way her eyes flicked to the staircase, as if expecting something to be there. But I was too tired to think about it. I nodded, muttered something polite, and climbed the stairs to my room. It was small but comfortable, with a big antique bed and a heavy wooden dresser. The window overlooked the trees, their branches scratching against the glass in the wind. As I lay on the bed, exhaustion washing over me, I heard something, just barely, a shuffling sound. At first, I thought it was Martha moving around downstairs. But no, it was closer, coming from the hallway. Then, 3 slow knocks. Not at my door, at the locked door down the hall. I held my breath. The house was so silent now. I could hear my own heartbeat. I told myself it was the wind or the house settling, but something in my gut told me it wasn't. Still, I didn't move. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for another sound. But eventually, I drifted into a restless sleep. And then, at 2 a.m., I woke up. Not because of a noise, not because of a bad dream, but because I felt watched. The air in the room was colder, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the blankets, the kind of cold that settles in your bones. I turned onto my side, my eyes adjusting to the dim light from the window, and that's when I saw her. A woman stood in the far corner of my room. She was wearing a long white nightgown, old-fashioned, like something out of another time. Her face was hidden in shadow, but I could see the way her body swayed slightly, like she was standing on the deck of a ship, rocking with the waves. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My first thought was that it was Martha. Maybe she was sleepwalking. Maybe she had forgotten I was staying here. But something deep inside me, some primal instinct, screamed that it wasn't Martha. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The woman took a slow, deliberate step forward. The floor creaked beneath her bare feet, and suddenly I knew she wasn't supposed to be here. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking, desperate for any source of light. My fingers found the screen, tapped the flashlight. The second the beam hit the corner, she was gone, vanished. I sat there for what felt like hours, my back pressed against the headboard, phone clutched in my sweaty hands. But nothing else happened. When morning finally came, I packed my things in record time. I practically ran down the stairs, ready to leave without saying a word. But Martha was waiting for me at the bottom, her expression unreadable. She looked at my face, really looked, and sighed. "You looked into her room, didn't you?" Her voice was quiet, tired. I hadn't, but I didn't stay long enough to ask what she meant. I just got in my car and drove, and as I glanced at the house one last time in the rearview mirror, I swear I saw someone standing at the upstairs window, watching me leave. Story 3. Last winter, my girlfriend Lisa and I booked a secluded Airbnb cabin deep in the Oregon woods. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend. No city noise, no distractions, just us, a fireplace, and the quiet hum of nature. Lisa had been stressed with work, and I was just looking forward to some time alone with her, away from everything. The drive up was long, winding through miles of towering pines, the road growing narrower and more isolated the further we went. No cell service, no gas stations, just the occasional abandoned-looking mailbox and the sense that we were stepping into a place forgotten by time. The cabin was beautiful, though, rustic but well-maintained, with a wide porch overlooking the trees. The Airbnb host, someone named Greg, had left a note on the kitchen counter welcoming us, along with a bottle of cheap red wine. Lisa laughed and poured us each a glass as we settled in. It was perfect, until it wasn't. It started with a feeling, not something you can put your finger on, just that creeping sensation, the one that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, like being watched. I told myself it was just the isolation, that we weren't used to being so cut off from civilization. But then Lisa spoke. "Do you hear that?" she asked. I paused. At first, I thought she meant the wind outside, which had picked up, making the trees groan against each other. But then I heard it too. A soft clicking sound, like a camera shutter. I stood up, glancing around. The fireplace flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. The cabin was small, just one main room, a tiny kitchen, and a bedroom with a single bathroom attached. There weren't many places for something to hide. I walked over to the window and looked outside. Darkness, trees stretching endlessly in every direction. Nothing else. Probably just the house settling, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I didn't believe them. That night, after brushing our teeth and getting into bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Lisa had fallen asleep quickly, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. Then, just as I was drifting off, I heard it again. Click. It was faint but unmistakable. My eyes snapped open, my pulse hammering in my ears. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and turned on the flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Everything looked normal. The closet door was slightly ajar, but we had left it that way. The curtains were drawn. Then, my light caught something near the smoke detector. A tiny, glinting object. I sat up, my breath catching in my throat. Slowly, I climbed onto the bed and reached up to the detector. It looked normal, just a standard white plastic cover. But as I leaned in closer, I saw it. A tiny camera lens, barely bigger than the tip of a pen, embedded inside. "Lisa," I whispered, shaking her awake. She groggily opened her eyes. "What?" I didn't answer. I just pointed. She sat up, blinking at the tiny lens. "What the hell is that?" I think it's a camera." The words felt wrong as I said them. Who the hell puts a camera in a rental cabin? Lisa was fully awake now, her breathing shallow. "You're joking." I grabbed my phone and took a photo with the flash on. When I checked the picture, there was no doubt. The reflection of camera lens stared back at me. I ripped the detector off the wall, exposing a tangle of small wires. That's when the panic set in. Lisa jumped out of bed, her voice shaking. "What if there are more?" We searched the entire cabin, the vents, the lamp beside the couch, under the TV stand. We found 3 more cameras, all hidden in different places, all pointed at the bed and living room. I felt sick. "We need to get out of here," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. We grabbed our bags, not even bothering to repack properly, and bolted. The drive back felt twice as long, the silence between us heavy. My hands were gripping the wheel so tightly they hurt. Neither of us spoke. When we finally reached a town with cell service, I pulled over and called Airbnb customer support. They took the complaints seriously, promised to investigate, and within an hour, the listing was taken down. I don't know what happened to Greg. I don't know if the police got involved, or if he just vanished into the void. But that wasn't the worst part. Later that night, when we were finally safe in our own apartment, I checked my phone. There was an airdrop request from an unknown device. A file. I didn't open it, but the preview showed a photo. A photo of Lisa and me sleeping in that bed. It was taken from inside the room.